Hi everyone, my name is Shobhit Gupta, and I'm Head of Product for AWS Entity Resolution. AWS Entity Resolution helps you to match, link, and enhance your consumer records using a combination of rule and machine learning-based matching or provider-based matching techniques. We have provider integrations across LiveRamp, TransUnion, and Open Framework UID 2.0. Today, in working with your partners and providers, you need to invest in building integrations, write custom code, which might take you weeks of time. We plan to remove this to a few clicks using AWS Entity Resolution. Just go to your management console, choose the provider service of your choice, and start getting the results out in just a few minutes. And today, the focus of this demo is going to be TransUnion products and services. You can use AWS Entity Resolution to deduplicate your data using rule-based matching, and then use TransUnion products as complementary to it to go and fill in information which you don't usually have, such as missing phone numbers, missing email addresses, missing demographic attributes, which helps you to really improve the fidelity of your data. And to talk more about what TransUnion offers, we have Ryan Engle today, who is VP of Identity Products and Platform Partnerships.
Hi, Shobhit. Great to be here.
Good to be here. We also have Punit Shah, who is a Senior Solutions Architect with AWS Entity Resolution. Let's open it up. So Ryan, we'll all love to learn more about TransUnion and what are the products at TransUnion that customers love?
Sure. Yeah. Everyone thinks about TransUnion as a credit bureau.
Yeah.
So of course, if you're going to apply for an auto loan or a home loan or something, you're going to work with TransUnion or one of the other bureaus. But I think what people don't realize is that TransUnion has a broad range of businesses, including their marketing business, where I'm leading the identity and the platform partnerships in that area. We're one of the biggest data providers in the marketing space. We do identity resolution, which we're here to talk about today, which helps with audience segmentation and so on. We're also in activation and measurement and basically everything that you might need from a marketing perspective. TransUnion is there to help you. I think we have a lot to contribute, but in this particular area, it's really about the data and improving the customer records that folks have within AWS.
Very interesting. So just talk to us a little bit, Ryan, about if somebody has to use TruAudience today, right? Like, what do they have to go through? Like, do they have to write some code, go through some APIs? And how do you think this integration really solves that problem?
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to focus our conversation on customers who are using the TruAudience identity services, because really that's what we're changing here. And so for those clients, historically, if clients want to work with us, there's a process of either we're just shipping a lot of data to a customer to their S3 bucket, and then they have to decide how to ingest that or what to do with it, what have you. Or in other cases, like clients will send us records, identity fragments, either online or offline fragments, and then we'll process those records, enrich them in some way, and send them back to them. And in each case, we're talking about shipping a lot of data, right? And so that's time-consuming sometimes. It's complicated. It's expensive. And then ultimately, when it gets to the clients, there's a lot for them to do to process that on their side. I think the other thing which is really coming to the surface now for me is the more data you ship around, the more concerns you're going to raise from an InfoSec perspective, privacy, data governance. And so all of those challenges make it like a nice opportunity for us to introduce a service like this where it doesn't require data to be transferred in that way.
Thank you, Ryan, for providing information related to how customers can use TransUnion products, right? And we all know that customers love TransUnion products, but today we already have, the AWS Data Exchange APIs. How is this integration different outside of the ease of use?
Yeah, sure. So we've had our APIs integrated with the Data Exchange for some time now. I think when you were first able to integrate APIs, we were one of the first pilot partners on that. And so it's been, I think, probably a couple of years that we've been over there. But with a new service, I'm excited about it because it gives us a chance to sort of rethink the way that we're interfacing with customers on your platform. And we've completely refactored our solution so that instead of client sending data to us and then us sending data back to them, what we've done with the help of the entity resolution capability is to bring our data to the customer instead. So what that means is that if a client were to query us with 100 million records, we see that they queried us with 100 million records, but we don't see any of the contents of those records. And so they benefit from all of the enrichment and things which we're going through in the demo, but without any of the privacy or data governance risks associated with shipping data all over everywhere. And that's really an important factor, I think, in the environment we're in, where there's growing scrutiny from a privacy perspective, data governance, and so on. For clients of TransUnion who really trust TransUnion as a credit bureau and also just a data provider and partner, it's really important that we deliver that type of privacy forward stance. And for financial services customers of ours, like, this is growing in importance, and so it's great to be able to deliver that here, both all those benefits, but also with the easy button.
Perfect. Awesome. And another thing I wanted to ask you, Ryan, was more around, are there specific industry-related examples that you have for TransUnion products?
Yeah, sure. It's the thing about identity is relevant for everyone. So when people say what industry is this relevant for? Every industry. And especially now with the cookies going away and other changes that are happening and influencing the whole marketing ecosystem, first-party data, identity data has never been more important. And so it applies to all verticals. To highlight some of the benefits from this service, I would say, we have a travel and hospitality client, for example, who is, they care so much about the way that they engage with customers. They called me here to try and book in advance. Now they're at my hotel and they're frustrated at the front desk. They're contacting our help desk, and now after their trip, we're following up with some promotion. And they want to reach them with the most relevant content each time. And so for them, it's really important to both integrate all their systems, but also do that in a timely way, so that, if you called me 2 hours ago and you were given a certain treatment, I want to treat you differently now.
Yeah.
And so their ability to collect data from all those different places and resolve identities in a timely way, that's really important, and you've made that really easy. We've had some clients who just refuse to send data anywhere. They've been unwilling to work with us from an identity resolution, or work with anyone for that matter. And now, with the ability to provide data without transferring data, that opens the door now to new use cases for them, which helps them benefit from all the value of identity and the strategic, first-party data asset.
Perfect. Awesome. So just to summarize, I think specifically today, if customers are using TruAudience, they have to do data schematization, normalization, data management, and effectively what we are going to demonstrate today in the demo, we just remove all of that and we bring it down to a few clicks, right? With that, let's tee up the demo, and let's just take the example here of a company which has some consumer information, and they're trying to enrich that consumer information using TransUnion TruAudience. For everybody who's watching, there are 3 steps that Punit is going to drive you today. One is creating a data schema resource. That's exactly where you show how your data looks like so that the service understands your data. Second is creating a matching workflow. A matching workflow is exactly where you choose the specific TransUnion product that you want to use. We have 2 of those products today that Punit is going to show, and you can choose the one that's more meets your needs. And finally, you need to give us an S3 bucket to write the results back to. As soon as we have the results available from TransUnion, we write the results to. With that, Punit, over to you.
Thank you, Shobhit. So as I go into the demo, I'm here on the entity resolution landing page. The very first step is to create a schema. So as we want to create a schema, the name suggests schema mapping. It means we are informing the entity resolution service on how the data is going to look like. The input data that you bring in, let's say for an enrichment use case, you want to use the TransUnion TruAudience enrichment product to enrich your data. You have certain columns, let's say you have first name, last name, address, email, but those are sparse information. You don't have all those values for all records all the way through. And that's where you're seeking help from TransUnion, saying, hey, I want to enrich my information. I want to fill in those gaps into my data records. Can you help me do that? And in order for that, the first thing is informing the entity resolution service that this is all the different elements that you have, and then creating a matching workflow to accomplish that. Now, first, by creating a schema mapping, we give it a name. Let's say TransUnion demo. Next, we point where the data resides. So it's going to be in a glue table. So I select my glue database. the appropriate glue table that contains my source records. Next, I select a unique ID, a column that represents every record uniquely in that source system. Next is my matching fields. So these are the fields that I want to interact with TransUnion. These are the fields that I want to ask TransUnion, this is the piece of information I have. Can you append additional information around it? So let's say, for example, these are all standard PI fields, and I want to actually enrich each one of them. So I'm going to just go ahead and select all of those, right? So that's my schema mapping, really. It's as simple as just identifying what source elements I have and then mapping them to something that the service understands. So address, as an example, maps to a street address one on the service side. City maps to a city on the address side. Email, I'll go all the way down to select my email address. So I'm really just mapping every individual attribute from my source system into something that the system can understand. Now, this is a great example here. We have gender on the screen as one of my input columns, but we don't see gender in this list out here. I can still choose to use that. I just simply say custom string, and then I say gender as my match key. Last name, again, a standard PI field. I map it to something called last name on the service side. Phone goes to a full phone. Postal code goes to postal code, and state goes to state. So this is my mapping really at this point. I hit next. I continue going next. This is my last step for schema mapping, which is reviewing all the configurations that I've done. If everything looks great, I simply click the button. I create the schema. Now, once the schema has been created, the next step, of course, is to create that matching workflow where I can have the entity resolution service invoke the TransUnion enrichment APIs to now append all the additional information that I've been looking for. So I go to the matching workflows, I create a matching workflow, again give a name. Select the data source. So I select my glue database, which contains my specific glue table of interest. I select the schema that was previously created. Next, I allow the service to create an IAM role. Essentially, this particular IAM role allows entity resolution as a service to act on your behalf as the customer to interact with the TransUnion APIs. This IAM role also has the read-write permissions from the said S3 bucket that you would configure in the subsequent steps. Now, on the matching technique page, we select provider services. Within provider services, we select TransUnion. The moment I select TransUnion, we see all the offered products from TransUnion that the service currently supports. Currently, we see the two TruAudience products. In this particular demo, I'm going to select the enrichment product since that's the point of this particular workflow, which is enriching the initial PII information with additional demographic information and also filling out those incomplete or missing information in my PII. Now, once I select that, the service makes a quick check to ensure that this particular AWS account that I'm using is indeed subscribed to that product. Once that check is successful, the service also asks me to present a temporary S3 location on my account, which the service can use while it's interacting with TransUnion. So I enter a S3 bucket. I hit next. On the next page, which is the output page, the final step, I again select the S3 location where I want the service to write the output to. Now, this output location is again an S3 bucket where it's going to append everything that it receives from TransUnion along with the input columns. Now, as I keep scrolling down, we see TransUnion generated output columns as over 200 columns. So it's more than 200 columns that this particular TransUnion product is going to append to the output. So even though my output had about like 10, 12 columns, I'm going to see on the output side more than around like 230, 240 columns, most of them coming from TransUnion as it enriches based on the information that I'm supplying to it. You can always go to the TransUnion to understand more about each of these different columns of what they really mean. As I scroll all the way down, everything looks great. I hit next. This is my final step of review and create. I see if any configuration needs to be changed. If not, I'm all ready to create my workflow. And I hit create and run. With this, a workflow has been created, which is now going to start reading the data from that particular source S3 location, interpret based on the schema definition that I just created, and then start sending all that information to TransUnion and initiate that entire exchange and append process of enriching the information. Now, while this may take some time, let me go back to another screen on a data set that I previously ran. Now, because of sensitive confidentiality nature of the data itself that we are dealing with, PII, I may not be able to show you the actual data itself, but I certainly want to demonstrate the output column so that you can appreciate the number of enriched elements that TransUnion is appending to your output. So when I describe my output table, and as I keep scrolling, you can see all these columns with the TransUnion append as a prefix. So all of these columns that I keep scrolling down that you see with TransUnion append prefix are coming from TransUnion. And you can well appreciate over 200 columns being appended to your output as part of your enrichment process. Now, this makes your PI information far more complete than what you initially had. So this can help you leverage a lot of other marketing use cases or anything else that your overall customer data platform ecosystem may require.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Punit, for that description. So Ryan, just taking a step back, right? And now that everybody in the audience have seen how this really looks like and has a good feel of it, where do you see the immediate use cases being unblocked for our customers? Can you walk us through a couple of different industry verticals and examples of customers that you have seen who have benefited from this product specifically to improve their marketing and segmentation, their measurement scenarios, and so on?
Yeah, sure. I think it's really three primary use cases. So there's there's a data hygiene or data unification use case, which helps support customer lifetime value, customer 360. There's a second use case, which is more about enrichment with different points of contact. So if you know Ryan and his phone number, but you want to activate to Ryan on Facebook, well, it would be helpful to have Ryan's email address to activate to Facebook. Yeah. We can provide that. Or, you want to send a direct mail or email, what have you, like omni-channel communication, for example, made easier by, the provisioning of additional data. And the third is, audience segmentation, where you are trying to understand from your customer base, like, what is the profile of your most valuable customer? How might I find more customers like that? Where am I missing? Where I sent that campaign to a certain audience type, but actually my customer base with that profile is not growing. Like, either is my marketing not effective or what's the problem? Like, there's a lot that you can do with the enrichment and segmentation. I'll give a couple of examples just to bring that to life on how our clients are benefiting from that. So we have one of the top 5 retailers is a partner of ours, a client of ours, and they really sweat their identity assets. So they even down to like the name in store and like the zip code of the store, and the surrounding area. They're able to work with us with just those 2 bits of information to identify consumers based on credit card swipes. And they take their online purchases and combine them with the in-store and all these different, points of contact to really create this rich, customer 360. For them, we managed to eliminate 30% of their customer records because not eliminate, but combine, 30% of their customer records because of the high level of duplication across all these different touch points. Once they were able to do that, then they were able to enrich the data with all of our hundreds of columns of enrichment and use those to build really smart machine learned models to define their audiences. Turns out some of the highly performing, professional clients of theirs have kids for whatever and so they find these predictive variables that define their audience. And then once they have that, they find other people like them. And the last use case for them, I know everyone's talking about retail media networks these days. Yeah. They use our data to define and better monetize their retail media network because they're talking about, what's the profile of the customer who's there, participating in their network.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan, for your time today and really walking us through the use cases. And thank you, Punit, for the demo. That was a great demo and some really good insights by Ryan. Let me summarize what we learned today. Number 1, how to use AWS Entity Resolution data schema resource. The data schema resource helps you to create metadata around your data, which helps us to understand what each column looks like and so on and so forth. Second, how to set up a matching workflow. A matching workflow is basically what helps you to pick the right provider services for your use cases. And third, how do you actually use AWS Entity Resolution in tandem with TransUnion products? And as was demonstrated by Ryan, you can use TransUnion products to go and stitch together disparate different information, which you can then use for creating your rule and machine learning based matching capabilities in AWS Entity Resolutions. Or you can also use AWS Entity Resolution just to go and enrich your consumer information with external attributes. Thank you.